Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me today and welcome to all those who are coming on and my replay viewers. Welcome. If you're catching this on YouTube, it originally aired live on Periscope during the week. So welcome. I'm going to flip my camera around so I can talk with you guys better. Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me today. Oh, I forgot to cut off that fan. I hope you're having a great day and enjoying the time. My name is Keely. I am the owner here of LoveHopeAdventure.com, where I blog about the marriage, relationship, intimacy, and marriage, and how you can go deeper with your spouse. And I wanted to address a question that was asked to me on one of my scopes the other day about should you text somebody of the opposite the opposite sex. You know, like if you're married, should you be texting people that are, of the opposite sex? And how to handle that, and what do you do? And guys, this is like a huge thing that I think we have to address, and we've got to establish some boundaries in our marriage and in our relationships. I heard it described like this once, that there used to be a lot more safeguarding in relationships of the opposite sex because there wasn't like this direct communication. If somebody wanted to call you, somebody wanted to talk with you, they would have to call you on the phone. All right, so you wouldn't even have a personal cell phone. You would just have a house phone. And so say Joe Blow from church decides to call you and one of your kids answers. So they're going to talk to your kids. People know they've called you. Your family recognizes they call you. And so you guys can have that conversation, and there's a lot more safeguards because, other people are aware that the conversations are happening, and you're going to get on the phone and you've got to talk, and what you're going to say, it's going to be listened to. Do you remember back in the day when we had the phones on the wall and cords? Like, you couldn't even get anywhere private. Nothing like that could happen. Here's the problem with cell phones, is that communication can be happening between two people without others knowing it. I have no idea the number of people that my husband texts in a day. I trust him. I don't really feel the need to go looking at his phone. I know about the conversations he has because he chooses to share them with me. So I can see as why texting can be such a danger between opposite sex and in marriage. Even if it's not someone of the opposite sex, just this like tethered thing that we have to the world outside of us, and ignoring our spouses and investing a lot more time and energy in friends, even if they're not friends of the opposite sex. I mean, it can be very difficult in marriage with texting. So today I want to specifically address, should you be texting people of the opposite sex, or how do you handle that? And I will tell you, I've avoided talking about this because of a couple of reasons. First of all, I have friends that are male. I have guy friends. And I text them or I Facebook message them. I mean, I'm talking through text to people of the opposite sex, and I haven't really wanted to address this because I haven't known what to say, because see, I've seen it go wrong. I have seen it destroy marriages. I know that relationships form through these types of communication and destroy marriages. So I haven't wanted to get on here and be like, yes, everyone should text whoever they feel like. But at the same time, I can't say you shouldn't ever text or email or Facebook someone that is of the opposite sex, because see, I have to do it also for my job. So I do have friends that are guys that I am going to text or send messages to, but also for my job, I have like solely written communication between many of my clients. Some are guys, some are girls. And you could say, oh, well, that's just work related, so it doesn't ever have to get personal. Well, actually, it does get personal. And it has to get personal because if I am going to meet a client's needs, I'm going to have to know something about them. I'm going to have conversations with them outside of what's happening right here, right now in the work area. You know, I mean, it's just this basic stuff that you would get to know about someone if you were having a face-to-face conversation with them, but it has to happen over text because maybe they're across the world, maybe they're in a different time zone, international calling, not a thing, or just the fact that many businesses have moved to text-based conversations, whether it's email or Skype or Facebook or whatever. So how do you safeguard yourself in that? Because I think that there's literally no way that you can avoid ever talking with someone from the opposite sex through text. So I think you have to really safeguard yourself, and you and your spouse are going to need to come up with some boundaries and some rules when it comes to cell phone usage anyway. So some of the things that Austin and I have done to safeguard ourselves, whether we've done it on purpose, I don't recall ever really having a real conversation with him about this, but these are the things that we do, and I think it's worked out well for us. Okay, so first of all, if it is a friend or even if it's a business partner or someone I'm working with, I tell Austin about the conversations that I am having with other people. Whether it is a guy friend or whether it is somebody that is working with me, and he shares with me conversations that he is having with other people too. Because see, he is going to need to email and text and Facebook people of the opposite sex also. Whether they're people he works with or volunteers with or whatever, or friends, I mean, it's going to happen. So what we end up doing, we share those conversations. If I sit over here and I have a conversation with a friend, Austin knows it's happening. He can look at my text history very easily. He can look at my Facebook messages. He can look at my Skype messages. He has access to my email. I mean, it's all very open, but he doesn't feel the need, at least I don't think he does, feel the need to go in and look at all of that because I just share with him. It's part of my day. I don't keep secret from him conversations that I am having with other people. Now, it's a little different if it's a confidence thing. So I've got some good friends, and I don't tell Austin about every conversation I have with my girlfriends. I don't tell him about every reader that writes into me. I mean, there are some things that are just confidence, and I don't necessarily feel the need to share people's personal business with him all of the time unless it's friends. All right? So here is kind of maybe that one of those rules is if you have a guy friend who's confiding in you, it should never be that you don't share that with your spouse. If you have a girlfriend and you're a guy and they are talking with you about their issues, you need to tell your spouse about it. They need to be in on the discussion. And this way, if you start saying, hey, I had this conversation with this guy or this girl the other day, and your spouse goes, well, wait a minute, that could be really dangerous. You shouldn't have that conversation. Or, hey, could I be a part of that conversation with you? Or I would really love to weigh in on this conversation. So it's really important that your spouse knows you're having the conversations, and it's also duly important that the person you're talking with, whether it's your friends or whoever, understands that your spouse knows that these conversations are happening, because that's going to help them stay guarded. It will help them. Something else that we do, I talked about having an open phone policy. So, it's not to say that I'm going to grab Austin's phone and just use it all the time, but it happens where we're driving down the road and he's like, hey, someone's texting me. Will you look at it? You need to have open phone policy. If your spouse is guarding their phone and doesn't want you to see what's going on, there's a reason for that, and that is rise for concern. If they are constantly running off with their phone and getting messages and leaving the room, you need to ask them about it. Hey, what's going on? Is this just coincidence or what? But you and your spouse need to have open phone, open computer policies. You guys need to know one another's passwords. You need to say to your spouse at any given time, hey, I really need to log into your email account to fill in the blank or whatever. You guys need to be open in that. Something else we do, if it's in a friend situation, is that we get to know the other person. All right? So if Austin has a friend or a coworker I'm going to get to know them. I don't know if I'll always get to know their spouse, but say if they're at church or something, maybe I'll get to know their spouse too. Austin, he gets to know people that I'm talking with, even if he doesn't like get to ever have a communication with them because it's a business person, he gets to know about them because I'm just talking about that person, because it's part of my life. But if you can get to know the person your spouse is talking to, that is best. It's always good to be like, think of it as like groups of friends, all right? Groups of friends. Think of it as, it's better that couples are friends with other couples. If that can't happen, they need to know. You know, your spouse needs to know your friends, whether they are your girlfriends or your guy friends, no matter opposite sex or same gender. Your spouse needs to know who you're spending time with. They need to have some of a relationship with the other person, for this reason. What if your spouse has a friend that is just constantly trashing you all the time, or that you don't trust, or that is just trying to destroy your marriage? I mean, you would want to know that. But I also find it very helpful in any sort of friendship is if your friends know your spouse. They are not going to speak as poorly about them if they truly know them. Even if you come to them and say, my spouse did fill in the blank, because they know your spouse, they have better perspective. Open friendships is so important. Another thing that I suggest is that you keep your feelings in check. Guys, be honest with yourself. You know when a friendship is moving out, when you're getting someone out of the friend zone, you know when that's happening. Keep your feelings in check. If you feel yourself saying, I want to do everything I can do to spend time with this person, they make me feel a certain way that my spouse makes me feel, or that my spouse used to make me feel this way and they don't make me feel this way anymore, but that person over there does, you need to cut communications. Just do it. You know if you are talking with someone that is going to damage your marriage. You do. Guard yourself against it, but keep your feelings in check. What's my motivation for talking to this person? What's my motivation for this conversation I'm about to have? What's my motivation behind this text I'm about to send? Are we just friends? Are we getting too deep? If we're getting deeper, I need to bring my spouse into this. If this friendship has gone past surface level, or this business partnership is beyond just the, this is what we have to do to get this project accomplished, and hey, how's your day? Mine's good. Oh, you just got married. That's good to know. I mean, you know the difference between surface level information about someone and a deeper. And if you're going to go deeper in relationship with someone else, your spouse needs to be a part of that. And so those are the safeguards that we've put in place. And guys, if your spouse comes to you and says, your interactions with that person concerns me, you need to listen to them, and I urge you to respect them. Now, does that mean your spouse gets to decide who you have relationships with? No, but you get to decide that you are going to respect your spouse's wishes, that you are going to take heed to what they have to say, because see, they know you better than anyone else knows you. And if they start seeing you developing feelings for someone, they might detect that before you detect it. Because think about it. Have you ever had feelings for someone that you didn't deny at first? Remember back to your dating days when you had a crush on someone, didn't you deny it at first? Right, because see, we don't want to admit that we have a crush on people or whatever. So if your spouse is coming to you and saying, man, I am seeing some things going down between you and that person, and I would really like for you to limit your communications with them, or let me become more involved, or whatever, then I really urge you to respect that. Now, I get this question a lot. People will say to me, is it okay to text people of the opposite sex? If you are asking that question, likely in your mind, you feel either that you are wrong for what you are doing, texting someone else, or you feel that your spouse is texting someone in an inappropriate way, or you feel concerned about it, okay? I have never once even asked this question. Is it okay to text someone of the opposite sex? Like, I never once asked that question until recently when I started seeing all these blog posts about it. Like, you should never text someone of the opposite sex, or you should never do this. And I'm like, really? Like, I've never even thought of this. Why? Because my motives and things are completely innocent. Like, I don't have any reason in the world to question, is it okay to text somebody of the opposite sex? So if you're questioning in it, all right, it's likely because either you don't think that you're right about something, you're trying to justify your own actions, or you're concerned about the actions of your spouse. So if that's the case, I really urge you to search your own heart. If you're concerned, if you're thinking, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, I don't know if it's okay. Guys, you will take the words of anybody to justify things that are wrong. So I am not at all saying you need to be texting other people or it doesn't matter, or you shouldn't care if your spouse is texting other people. Use your spidey senses, right? You have these things that make you... My husband's here. Say hi, Austin.
Hey, guys. The boys didn't tell me you were doing stuff.
Oh, listen, y'all saw my announcement yesterday, and our, we talked about how Austin's going to be home more, and he's going to be able to weigh in more. And so, Austin, I've been talking about safeguarding yourself with text conversations and emails and just any kind of communications with people of the opposite sex.
Okay.
Some of the things I said was that you should be sharing about those conversations with your spouse, have an open phone policy, get to know that other person and get to know their spouse if you can, kind of all becoming friends, keeping your feelings in check about that person, and establishing boundaries with your spouse. Do you feel like I'm missing anything?
Boundaries with your spouse.
I mean, like
agree with your spouse what the boundaries are outside of the marriage. Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to the list?
No pressure. Yeah, I mean, when you said safeguards, is that just like protect your...
Oh, this
where the language is going?
My title.
Okay.
This is how I feel like we safeguard
conversations. So a lot of that sounds like it's how we safeguard each other.
Yeah.
And okay. So, and I would
we've
also...
never actually had a conversation about this, I don't think. Okay.
We know each other.
I
would say maybe just kind of an underlying thing would also be like safeguarding yourself, just like being aware of where the relationship is going as far as the other person that you're talking with. I love the idea that the context is in text messages and emails. I know some people are phone call people and some people are texting people. Phone call person, texting person. Keely has learned to be a texting person because of some of her friends. And the thing that I love about texting and email, or even social media, Facebook Messenger, conversations through comments and those kinds of things, and I began to embrace this as a youth pastor, is there is a definite record. I have, because I use Google Voice, I have history of every text conversation that I had going back like 5 years probably. Wow. And probably not when I was a youth pastor as much, because those were more along the lines of on my business cell phone. But I love that there is a record there. And this actually came up once. Somebody said, you said this to my daughter. And it wasn't like it was an inappropriate thing. It was just, this is what I understood you to tell my daughter about the event coming up or whatever. And I pulled it back up and I said, no, let me read you what I said. And maybe I miscommunicated. But here's the words that I used. So you got that record. But then also just kind of like being aware of where the relationship is going with that other person. If you feel yourself being drawn to conversations with that person rather than with your spouse, that's a red flag. If you find yourself just throughout the day saying, I wonder what so-and-so's up to.
I mean, but as just a friend,
No, I'm not saying that you can't ever think about that friend during the day. Oh, but if it's just like constantly coming up.
Somebody says you connect Google Voice to your cell phone.
I do.
Yes.
I do. for a couple
All
of
of our
years
texting
now.
is through Google Voice.
Right, and Google Voice now patched into Hangouts. I could do a whole other post on that, but
Yeah, you actually probably should do a post on that.
you know, I didn't think about that in terms of how that would connect to the marriage relationship, but
Yeah.
sure. And even the parent relationship, because my oldest now is on, he has a Google Voice number that's very limited, and I have the password, so I can log in at any time and say, what's he been saying?
Yeah. What's he been looking at? What's he been saying?
Right. Somebody there said, watch your thoughts. And that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, if you're thinking about the person all day long, and even more so than wondering, I wonder what my spouse is doing today, that's a little bit weird. Watch the language that's coming across in the conversations, whether it be on the phone or via text message. Listen for inflections if you're on the phone coming from the other person or even yourself. And, you know, like Keely said, be open. Keely and I have some friends.
Like saying, I miss you. Oh, well, I have friends I say I miss them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it depends.
We have some couples in our lives that are very close. I feel like I'm edging you out slowly but surely.
I just don't know where to stand.
we have some family friends that we are very, very close to. And Keely is very close to the husband and the wife. And I'm very close to the husband and the wife. And because of the nature of those relationships and conversations, we're constantly sharing those with them, you know. So, hey, what's up with so-and-so today?
Sure.
And, you know, and Keely will say, well, you know, we were texting earlier and this and that and the other thing, and here's what's going on. And so we're very open about how that communication is going down. And, you know, were we talking specifically on, are we talking not face-to-face,
the
real
reason
life?
we were talking specifically about text-based and emails and Facebook and stuff like that is that I have read some bloggers, some marriage bloggers, who will say you should never text people of the opposite sex or have those kinds of connections with them unless it is very specific to work or church. And I have not weighed in on this because I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't want to write blank checks to people saying, well, you know, you can just talk to whoever. So this is why
people never do that.
Yeah.
People never misunderstand what we mean.
So that's why I actually just talked about how we've handled it in our marriage because you and I have a lot of conversations through texting, through emails, through Facebooking. As far as face-to-face goes, I mean...
Maybe that's a topic for another day.
You and I aren't... Oh, Keely and I talked about this a month ago. Yeah, JD's on here talking sex with a marriage.
JD, what's going on, man?
And I asked JD this. I said, JD, what do you think? Because, I mean, obviously you and I have conversations, so you must not be against this. And he said, what did you say, JD? You should tell us, because maybe you were in the same boat as me. You weren't sure how to address it.
And it is tricky because, like you said, you know, a conversation that Keely and I
had. And JD says he and Austin talk too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
And you know what? That's another key. Like Keely said, get to know each other's spouses. Because, if particularly, you know where that...
Yes, and I've talked with JD's wife too.
Right.
So.
And I don't know who you said throughout there that it can only be about work and church. Can I just say that in the line of work that we're in and the line of work that JD is in, if Keely and JD were only talking about that work context, that could get bad fast.
Good. We're marriage bloggers.
Yeah, you know, we're marriage and intimacy bloggers, so, you know...
I often
really
be like,
difficult.
JD, what's this thing? I've never even heard of this. And he's like, oh, what's this, you know?
Yikes. So that's the thing is, you know, if you try and set hard legalistic boundaries, nah. So we try and stick with principles and concepts and that kind of thing, and just say, we're going to try and work on this or avoid this. And I think, oh my gosh, if I could just say communication. Talk to each other, communicate. There's a whole other topic. I'm actually going to be writing a post later this week about that in a whole other context. But if
what about hugging someone of the opposite sex?
Yeah.
I hug people of the opposite sex, but
do you want to save and maybe tomorrow we do one about
face to face
in real space,
do that.
actually face
to face. How about we do that?
Yeah, because that's a whole topic. Thursday.
We will come on tomorrow. It might be later in the afternoon because we're gonna go out for a family morning. So we might have to come on a little bit later on. So you think it's good, but you tell your husband.
There's
yeah,
a note.
Tomorrow we've made a note. We're going to have conversations about face-to-face.
She didn't need the note, I did.
Oh, I was like, yeah, what are we writing now? So you were just saying something that brought something to mind. I read a article this week, and I would link to it, except for I have no clue where I read it. But you were talking about don't focus on like this list of principles and rules, but just focus more on communication and things like that. And I was reading this article this week that talks about, you know, some of the things in our life God did not really specifically address as being not okay. So they
this
were
topic in particular.
Yeah, they were talking in the article about masturbating. Well, God didn't really say one way or the other. I mean, some people might think that he did, or maybe certain sex acts or something like that. And she was just like, maybe some of these things, God has left them open-ended because it's not about this list of do's and don'ts rather than intentions. What is your intention behind doing some of these things? And maybe it's so that we don't just, because that's not a relationship. Just, well, don't do this and don't do that. That's not really relating. That's just following rules. So
and it kind of gets into free will and individualism and that kind of thing. Not individualism in a negative sense, but if there is a list of here are the inviolable rules, and it's nitpicky down to the microscopic level, then there's no allowance for preference and, you know, I don't want to say interpretation because that maybe carries some bad baggage, but the idea that, you know, in your marriage, that's not okay. In our marriage, it's okay because God didn't say, you know, thou shalt not text your neighbor, you know, that would have been awesome. But the Hebrew is going, text, I don't, but because some things are left open, alcohol is an issue for it's not an issue for us. It's a topic for us where we're teetotalers. Yeah, and I'm a teetotaler not because I'm a Christian, because I'm an alcoholic waiting to happen, because I've got it on both sides of my family. So some people go, well, I have a drink, you know, at dinner at night, and I'm like, I don't know how, because I know that if I had a drink, I wouldn't have a drink. I'd have 5 probably. So for us, not okay. For other married couples, totally okay. For other married couples, they think it's okay and they're wrong. But hey, because it's an issue. I'm not saying
I didn't understand what you just said.
It's wrong for them, and they don't know that it's wrong for them because they can't handle it.
Somebody says they think kids are taught more black and white and have to learn the flexibility of things.
More topics, because how do you teach your kids principles when they're not abstract thinkers yet? They're very concrete thinkers, and so that's why. That's part of adolescence. That's part of growing up, is that you say, you cannot do X, Y, and Z, and you do have your list of commandments, and then as they get older, you pull some of those back and say, well, here's the underlying thing. I'm not going to say, don't pinch your brother, don't punch your brother, don't push your brother.
Just don't hurt your brother.
I'm a Baptist, so I don't even know when I'm alliterating anymore, but don't be hateful to your brother. That's the principle, but you can't understand that when you're 4. Yeah. So we have to say, don't bite. Don't take their toys, don't knock them down, that kind of thing. So, exactly. But and we do the same thing in marriage. Mm-hmm. We shoot for underlying principles, but sometimes we have to say, okay, here's a spot where this is a hard line. Because we have recognized a weakness in ourselves. What do they say?
She said that depending on how your spouse is raised, it might be more black and white. And we do have to start with that list of things, the do's and don'ts, so that we just have a guideline to work off of. But the question that we always try to ask, and we have taught teenagers to ask this question too, is not like how far is too far or how much can I get away with, but rather, how can I honor God? How do I glorify God? So, in your relationship with other people, whether it's a guy or a girl or someone of the opposite sex or not, or however, how can I honor God through this relationship? I ask that same thing about my relationship with my husband. I ask that same thing about the relationship I have with my friends, with my coworkers, or with people that I work for or counsel with. How do I honor God in this relationship? And that's really rather than don't text or do text or whatever. I mean, ask if you're honoring God and your spouse.
Ooh, and your spouse.
And your spouse. Yeah. Because you have a commitment to your spouse and your family.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's kind of where we are with that, and maybe we will pare it all down in a little article. Otherwise, people are never going to watch this squirrely scope that we've put together. So
interrupted scope.
Oh, you know, whatever.
Hey, I'm back from the store.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. If you want to find out what else we've been blogging about, go to lovefulthadventure.com. And tomorrow we'll come on and we'll talk more about the face-to-face interactions that you have with people of the opposite sex, and I think even people with the same sex. So we will talk with you guys soon. Have a great day.